Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of Paizo Live, where we talk a little bit about all things Pathfinder and Starfinder. I'm your host, Aaron Shanks, Marketing and Media Manager for Paizo. Over the next 2 hours, we'll talk about Pathfinder rulebooks and adventures, the Lost Omens world guides, Paizo Organized play, including Pathfinder Society and Starfinder Society, and then the Starfinder rulebooks and adventures lines. We've got a lot to talk about, and I'm really excited. It's one of my favorite days of the month. So let's get started and introduce our first 3 guests, the Pathfinder team. First, we're going to start with Patrick Renie, developer. Patrick, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks, Aaron.
Nice to see you. And just tell, for someone who doesn't really know anything about the RPG industry, what is it you do as a developer?
Sure. So I am partially responsible for the Pathfinder Adventure Path line, which means concepting, everything from the stories of these adventure paths, which are, campaigns for game masters to run, and to hiring the authors who write them and editing the first, doing the first editing pass and figuring out what art goes in there. Kind of runs the gamut.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us today. Our second guest is Mark Seifter, design manager. Thanks for joining us, Mark. Hello.
Hi, Aaron.
Hello. Please go ahead. Tell everybody what it is you do as design manager.
So as the design manager, I do a lot of game design. That's often working on things that are in those hardcover books. So new classes like the Inventor or the Swashbuckler, or the Summoner. But I'm also responsible for managing the tasks of the products that we are handling as a team and figuring out how we can get all that done and over to you.
Excellent. Thank you. And our third guest is Mr. Jason Bulmahn, Director of Game Design. Hello, Jason. Thanks for joining us.
Hey there, Aaron. How's things?
Excellent. Beautiful afternoon. Essentially, with Paizo Live, we've found a way to share all of our homes with all of our fans. So thank you.
Yes, I've been living in this cave for months now. Hey there, everybody. I'm Jason Bulmahn. I'm the director of game design at Paizo. What that generally means is that I spend most of my time thinking of, dreaming up, and programming products that I can't talk about yet, because they're things that we haven't announced that are several years down the road. So yeah, my job is to kind of make sure that we're making the kind of games you all want to play.
Thank you for being with us. Gentlemen, just to give you a heads up, I'll have you give your Twitter handles at the end of the segment.
Sure.
I've got them here, but I thought we'd make sure everybody has those before you say goodbye today. So let's review where the Pathfinder rulebook line stands today. In just over a year and a half since the launch of Pathfinder 2nd Edition, we have the core rulebook, Bestiary, Game Mastery Guide, Bestiary 2, Advanced Player's Guide, and coming soon, Bestiary 3. It will be followed by Secrets of Magic in late July, Guns and Gears in October, and while not shown, of course, we can't forget the Pathfinder Beginner Box that introduces players to both tabletop role-playing gaming at all, and then Pathfinder specifically in one deluxe set. So that's where we stand today. As you can see by the graphic, we've got all of those images are final. You can see those images at the Paizo store, except the last one there, Games and, Guns and Gears is not yet final. But today I'm really thrilled because we can dive into our biggest release of the month, Bestiary 3. Let's dive into Bestiary 3, available beginning April 7th in PDF, hardcover, special, and pocket, softcover pocket editions, all of them at once. It's described as a triple threat. Over 300 captivating creatures and fantastic foes pack the pages of this compendium of creatures from the world of Pathfinder, with classic creatures like Clockworks and Flumps, returning favorites like Imperial Dragons and Mighty Titans, and brand new menaces from all over Golarion. This must-have tome of monsters is an essential companion to your Pathfinder game. Mark, how did you prioritize what went into Bestiary 3?
Well, Aaron, I want to make it clear before I go into it too much that the design lead at the beginning of this process was Liz Liddell before she moved to a new position. So a lot of this was something that Liz took the lead on at the time. However, we were all involved in that process, and I'm happy to describe it now. Basically, we knew we had Bestiary 1, Bestiary 2, and the Bestiary 3 would be the last traditional bestiary of the set. So that meant that we prioritized by looking at what was in Bestiary 1 and Bestiary 2 and figuring out what was missing. And that could be a specific creature or it could be a theme of creatures. We looked and saw, wait a minute, are there certain spots that are rough for summoning, for example? Are there certain environments where there might not be enough creatures in a particular range? Maybe we wanted a few more urban monsters that you can fight against in a city, and with a cover that takes place in a city, that would be convenient. What kind of dragons did we want to put in? And as you said, that's the Imperial dragons. So we took a big picture approach and a fine-grained approach. Plus, then we brainstormed with all of the developers and designers and all the editors who could make it, came in and pitched new monsters that had never been seen before, or monsters that weren't in the game yet, that were like, are these on the cusp? Should they make it in to that third bestiary to be in the set? And when we combined all of those things into sort of a special formula, that's how we get this list of monsters for Bestiary 3.
Excellent. Well, that sounds actually like a great segue. Let's look at the full list of creatures now. We've got the table of contents here for you to look at, and we can all talk over the top of it. There's the big list. I expect some screenshots to be occurring. Gentlemen, what is that creature? What is the illustration there? Do you know?
That's a Hyakume.
Gesundheit. All right. Excellent.
It's from Japanese folklore. The name literally means 100 eyes, and it has a lot of eyes and is very dangerous.
It looks it. Is that a robe of eyes or an eye of robes or something? No? Okay.
It's neither.
I'm never going to escape that.
Nor do we want you to.
Yeah.
So great. That's the list. When we say over 300 monsters and creatures, there it is. You know, this is a great opportunity to just kind of look at that sidebar and all the contributors and authors that helped make this Bestiary 3 happen. It's a big list. There were a lot of people in-house and both freelancers that were involved. So I just want to note that. Is there anything you can say about how you decided what didn't go into Bestiary 3? Is there a way that you reserve things specifically for adventure paths or adventures, or maybe in the back of your mind, you know, there's some book down the road that you can't talk about yet, but you know you have a special place for? How does that
I think
go?
As designers, we tend to try not to design too much of this is too good for a book later on, so it can't come out now, because we do know that delays when you're going to get that monster into your game. So we try to focus on making it just the right book for now. And so the monsters that were not in it were decided by, we got all the ones that we wanted to fit, and then we had to cut some of those. And it was based on balancing all of the multiple factors I mentioned before. So it was more that we want to put tons of monsters in than that there was necessarily like a list of monsters we reserved on purpose to keep out.
Great. Good to know. We get all sorts of questions like that, and I thought it might help sketch it out for our community.
The real secret is we literally just let all of the stat blocks fight it out, and that's how we decide to play them. It's not fair, but you know, it is how it is.
A lot of creatures fighting to the mat.
Yeah.
That would end up with a lot of really high crit rating monsters, I should think. So,
well, we balance the encounter, so you know it's 120th level guy against 4,000 first level monsters. So,
actually, that's a great segue. I understand that there is some new mechanics in this Bestiary 3 for parties that want to deal with a massive attack of lower level creatures, and I believe that's called troops. Can you tell us about it?
Sure. So, when it comes to troops, we already had swarms. That lets you deal with a mass of usually very tiny, often animalistic creatures like rats or bugs that just swarm all over you. But when we wanted to introduce troops, which were, as you said, like a group of maybe 30 soldiers that work together as a unit, we knew that you couldn't really treat them the same way that you could treat bugs in the fiction, in the story, and in the world. When you have like a whole bunch of bugs, you can just imagine swiping at them and just like a bunch of the really tiny bugs dying. But when each of the people is an individual soldier, there's a little more of a feel that there's a certain number of creatures that are in there. So we realized that we couldn't just say, well, it works exactly the same as the swarm, except for that it's a troop. And it actually went through multiple iterations with plays tests by Liz, myself, Luis Loza, and we eventually came to what we have now, which is that troops have a certain number of creatures in them, but it's very large. As you damage them, they cross thresholds and become smaller as you take out some of the creatures that were from that troop. And sometimes that means that their attack areas become smaller too, so that they become a little weaker as you go along. And that can sort of give you the feeling that you really are fighting against 30 different opponents and you're making progress, rather than just like, well, there's this big group of them and I got them to 1 hit point, but nothing bad happened to them. And then I did 1 more damage and they're all dispersed. And that's sort of where we were going at from troops.
Excellent. I know people are going to dive into that and can't wait to use that mechanic at their tables. Thank you, Mark. Patrick, just to check in with you, were there some monsters that you ended up creating that you wanna talk about in the Bestiary 3?
Well, the next thing we'll be talking about after this book actually plays into the troops. It's on the cover art, so I'll mention that there, that we couldn't have done some of the encounters in one of the forthcoming adventure paths without those new mechanics. I'm always a big fan of the Clockworks, so I was really glad to see that Clockwork Dragon on the cover. Big fan of all sorts of steampunk monsters and the kinds of more niche fantasy subgenres and speculative fiction kinds of stuff that goes into when you get later in the game. So like we can explore this clockwork stuff, and you can see the Clockwork Mage there. I think that's one of the coolest monsters for sure.
Right. Yeah. So these are. I asked the art department to give us the page from the Bestiary 3 that first mentioned the 3 different monsters on the cover of the book. We've got the Clockwork Dragon. It's mentioned at the bottom of the first page there, but there's still, of course, all the stats to be revealed on the next page. So you'll need to get the book to see the full stat block. And then the second page there is the skeleton infantry that you'll see fighting on the cover. Once again, it's a picture of a dinosaur skeleton, but that's where the skeleton infantry stat block starts. And then lastly, we've got the tooth fairies that apparently come in both individual fairies and in swarms. So that's a glimpse of what you'll find inside the Bestiary 3, with so much amazing art just crammed in there. It's gorgeous. It looks really good, you guys. Were there any comments you wanted to throw out about what you see on these pages? Things that people might be excited about based on what's seen here?
Well, you might be able to figure out a little bit about how troops work by looking at the stats for the troop.
Yeah,
that were on that page. So I think that's pretty cool. And also just now that the Clockwork Mage stats are on the same page as the end of the Clockwork Dragon, you can try to reverse engineer the Divine Guardian stats, because Mark Moreland put out a blog for a Clockwork Divine Warden that was a Clockwork Mage of Brine, the goddess of machines. And so you have the stats for both of them combined, and now you have the stats for the mage. So can you figure out what the template did?
Excellent. Yeah, folks, that blog is called Pathfinder Bestiary 3 Bonus Monster Blog. You can find it on Paizo.com. All right. Well, that's a little... Oh, go ahead, Jason.
I kind of wish that the swarm of tooth fairies could pull out a swarm of your teeth. They only get one. I feel like we made a mistake. We're going to need to errata that. I want them to get at least 1d6 teeth.
In your games, I'm sure that will happen.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I mean, that's the first rule of Pathfinder, right? Is change the rules if it's going to be more fun for you to do so. So that sounds. It allows you to be. It allows you fun. So each group gets to define what that means to them. So I just wanted to give everybody a glimpse as to what the Pathfinder, the Bestiary 3 looks like. As I said, it will come to our store on next Wednesday, the 7th. You can download it as a PDF or find it in your favorite local game store. I think I want to look ahead now to Secrets of Magic and spend just a few minutes on that. Secret Magic is still a few months away. It releases in late July in PDF, hardcover, special, and softcover pocket editions. Let's recap what it is. Here's what we know already. Discover the untold potential of magic. Secrets of Magic, the newest hardcover rulebook from the Pathfinder role-playing game. It brings the popular Magus and Summoner classes into Pathfinder 2nd Edition, unlocking heroes who combine magical might with martial prowess, and offering command of a powerful magical companion creature. It's lavishly illustrated with 256 pages and contains hundreds of new spells. And it goes on and on. I will say that there is a special section within the volume called the Book of Unlimited Magic that I think is amazing. It sounds like it's full of a lot of lore and background. It presents new methods of spellcasting with elementalism, geomancy, shadow magic, rune magic, and even pervasive magic to give every place and creature in your game a magical spin. Gentlemen, I believe there's a big milestone we were trying to hit by the end of the week here. Do you know where we are at in the process of Secrets of Magic? Are we close?
I should be doing the final approvals right now.
Yes. So thank you for taking time to be with us today.
Yeah, I had to rush. So if the index isn't fully vetted, sorry, I had to be here. That's just how it works. I don't know what to do.
I think it's worth it to have Jason on the stream.
Indeed. So I
do want to note that cover is not actually final.
Oh no, okay.
The art is correct, but when folks actually see the final cover, it's going to blow them away. It's something new from us. So
I think it's going to get a nicer logo treatment and a few things that we have yet to see. So
yeah.
Our art department is amazing. So they have yet to put their finishing touches on it, and I need to do them justice. So
secret.
Jason, since I've got you, let's talk about what makes this hardcover different from the previous ones. How do you envision the previous rule books and this rule book?
Sure.
I understand there's a change.
Yeah, so Bestiary 3 kind of marks the end of what I like to think of as the core of the RPG, right? So you got your core rule book, you got your game mastery guide, Bestiaries 1, 2, 3, you got the advanced player's guide, you've got your game mastery guide, you got a beginner box. All of those kind of are a set of common tools for every table to use. There's a mountain of monsters. There are a ton of character options. And all of those are things that we consider pretty common. Things that a lot of tables will find kind of universally applicable to their game. Once we get beyond that, we're going to start going into some different directions. We're going to start exploring some things and individual topics more deeply. Secrets of Magic is kind of the first one. And for that, we decided to go with something that was, frankly, pretty easy, but, it's being followed up by Guns and Gears, which goes in kind of a different direction. And each one of these books are kind of more of a deep dive into an individual topic. Something that, you as game master and players need to, decide, is that something we want to add to our game and how much, right? We kind of assume that, most of the stuff in the Advanced Player's Guide and Core Rulebook, those are things that are going to be at most tables. We're not exactly worried about it. But beyond that, we want to kind of give you that option to kind of mix and match, play with the parts that you want to play with. Make sure that you're only using the parts that fit your vision of the world and the story that you're telling. So, Secrets of Magic is kind of the first book to do that. And we're excited to see what it does. It opens up a lot of opportunities for us. The books can be a lot more robust in kind of how deep they dive into a topic. They can include a lot more kind of flavor and story and narrative combined with rules in a way that will really, we hope, kind of fire the imagination of GMs and players everywhere. I've been going through Secrets of Magic here for the past few days, doing final approvals, and there have been some sections that I didn't exactly get to take a close look at beforehand. And they're knocking it out of the park. There's some stuff in here that's got me scribbling down ideas and thoughts about my future campaigns. So I hope all the folks who are playing with it at home will feel the same way.
That's great to hear. I'm really excited to see it. It's going to be one of the highlights of the year, I'm sure. Mark and Patrick, are there things you'd like to add?
I saw a question in the chat from Ezekiel asking about that Book of Unlimited Magic, whether are the rules for Book of Unlimited Magic class archetypes, new rules, or player options? And the answer is yes.
All of the above. So it's definitely rules and options, but also ways to develop your world conceptually, make your campaign your own. That sounds really exciting. Some off the beaten path things. Patrick, did you get a chance to touch this one, or is this mostly in the design team's hands right now?
This was mostly design team, yeah. But I've been privy to the brainstorms and developments on the new iconics like the Summoner and the Magus, and those are awesome. And I think people are if they haven't seen already, I think they're really going to like the direction we've taken with some of these new iconics.
Excellent. All right. Well, we're going to save discussion of Guns and Gear for another show because it is several months out, and I want to save some topics. So now I want to travel to Pathfinder Adventures Abomination Vaults, start to talk about our adventures. Let's move from rulebooks to adventures and talk about the Pathfinder Abomination Vaults adventure path. And here's what we know already. Eyes of Empty Death is a Pathfinder adventure for 4 8th level characters. This adventure concludes the Abomination Vaults adventure path, a 3-part monthly campaign in which the heroes explore a sprawling mega dungeon to stop an ancient evil from renewing her monstrous vengeance. This particular adventure includes an expanded look at the ghosts in Galarian, an examination of the outer god Nimbeloth, and powerful new rules and monsters, because of course they all include powerful new rules and monsters. It's great. The back matter of every volume is great in an adventure path. It's available beginning April 7th in print and PDF. Patrick, we know that Pathfinder players sometimes play adventure paths right out of the book, while others adapt them for their worlds. You weren't the lead developer on this project, but is there anything you can tell us about dungeon crawls in general and this adventure path as a whole, or any back matter in the series that might be useful for homebrewers to grab onto, even if they're not planning on running this as verbatim?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So Ron Lundeen was the lead developer on this adventure path, and he did an amazing job as always. And we've got some awesome authors on this. James Jacobs wrote one, Vanessa Hoskins, Stephen Ratty McFarland. And one thing I think that's super cool about this adventure path in particular is we really wanted to make it the mega dungeon adventure path, right? So there's a long tradition in RPGs, tabletop RPGs, of the big dungeon that's 10 levels deep, and it's this old castle that connects to the Darklands, and it's got 10 different factions of monsters in it and all this stuff. And so we really wanted to contribute to that tradition, and I think we did an awesome job with this adventure path in particular. Even if you just use the maps from it, the maps are really inspired, and it's awesome to see how they all connect. James Jacobs was the person responsible for drawing all the initial maps to make sure they all connected to each other in such and such way. And I think that really shows, and it's a really awesome mega dungeon. I think in general, if you're looking at the adventures as well as the back matter, like you said, there's a lot about ghosts. There's a lot about just spooky stuff in general. So if you're into spooky things, paranormal, then this will definitely help contribute to your games. There's new special abilities for ghosts. There's ideas for how to use ghosts in your campaign. There's specific ghosts on Galarian. So we really got to hone in on, and not just ghosts, but other creatures too. There's drow in this adventure path, and any mention of drow would be remiss if we didn't include their nefarious flesh warping tradition, which we established 11 years ago, and but it's just too cool to not bring back and kind of talk about it in a new context with second edition, because now people can play goblins and we've got kobolds and all sorts of stuff. So how does that factor into this drow flesh warping tradition? And so it was really cool to explore some of these older themes that we established a long time ago using the new second edition ethos and mythos.
Great. It's just, I've heard people, seen people on our forums just rave about the trilogy, about the plot, about how spooky it was and how strong the writing is. So I guess I would encourage people to play it verbatim if they possibly could, because it really seems to be holding up in a way that people are excited about. So thank you. Patrick, you are the lead developer on the Fists of the Ruby Phoenix Adventure Path. That's the next adventure path that starts next month. So let's get into that. Here's what we know already. The time has come for the Ruby Phoenix Tournament. The sorcerer Hao Jin has invited only the strongest martial artists, adventurers, and fortune seekers to her world-famous fighting competition. The motley roster of contenders must compete for this decade's champion title and the choice of one of the Ruby Phoenix's grand treasures. Who will come out on top and who will be left in the dust? It is 3 parts, just as the previous adventure path was, but this one starts at 11th level, whereas the Abomination Vaults started at first. In fact, you can play them back to back. That's possible to do, but you don't have to. Does that sound right, Patrick?
That's absolutely correct. Yeah. So we really wanted to emphasize that the Ruby Phoenix tournament, it's this worldwide fighting tournament. It's like where the best fighters and wizards and adventurers, from the whole world go to see who's the best. And that we could have done that maybe in a traditional adventure path that spanned 1 through 20, levels 1 through 20, but this, doing it this way where it starts at 11th level and takes you all the way to 20th level allows us to really tighten that story and keep it focused on the tournament itself. And it kind of started as it's a new idea for us. We usually start the adventure pass at first level, but I think for this one especially, it really worked out great, and it's really exciting.
So how long have you been working on this project? How did you approach a project that started mid-level? What was that like?
Well, the Ruby Phoenix tournament, we first explored this canon was created about 10 years ago, and with a module called the Ruby Phoenix tournament. So we've had this canon in our game for a long time, that there's this once per decade tournament, and since the calendar in our game goes with the calendar in real life, we want, it's been 10 years, so it's time to check that out again. And a lot's changed, it turns out, in Galarian. Our campaign setting is kind of a living, breathing thing. So, there's a couple things that are new, like in the last tournament, the Pathfinder Society claimed this artifact that Hao Jin made that basically had a bunch of places and people and things trapped inside of it, and they released all that back into the world. So there's a lot of stuff back in the world that maybe wasn't super stoked on being trapped by Hao Jin. To complicate it further, Hao Jin is back in the world, so she's got to have a hand in this tournament that's held in her name. So all these things kind of combine, and one of the my challenge, my personal mission for this adventure path was to make sure that fans of our lore and history junkies and people who really know our setting really well, wanted to make sure that they were rewarded for knowing all this stuff. But I also wanted to make it just a really cool fighting tournament for people who just want to enter a really cool fighting tournament.
That's great. We did have Linda Zayas Zayas-Palmer on last episode 1, and she really went into the history of organized play and the Ruby Phoenix tournament there. So definitely, if you missed that episode, go back, listen to the stories she has to tell about what happened 10 years ago. Yeah, Patrick, it really occurs to me just here and now that more than any other adventure path that I think we've written for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, this one is deeply tied into pre-existing lore and pre-existing stories in a way that just carry everything forward. That must have been really rewarding to sink your teeth into.
It really was, and it's I mean, I've been a huge fan of Pathfinder for since Burnt Offerings, and seeing how the world has changed in these ways is a really rewarding part of playing the game and reading the books and the whole Pathfinder story. I think it's really cool that it doesn't it's never the same year to year. Things are always changing and evolving and complicating. So and I think that's doubly true for this one. In the first Ruby Phoenix tournament, it was a pretty standard tournament, 7-day thing where you fought a couple teams and the winner was the tournament winner. In this one, since Hao Jin is back and she's the grand judge, she has said, let's have a bunch of people. I want to see a bunch of teams. You're all going to fight it out on this island called, that she's dubbed Danger Island. And so your mission while you're on this tropical island is to face off against other teams while also surviving the elements and, establishing a base. And then at the end of 3 days, the people still standing are the top 8 contenders, and they're the ones who get to go to the actual tournament, which will be in the second volume.
Great, no spoilers. We'll cross that bridge soon enough. I did want to let everyone know that now this is the final cover of the first volume. I think our final cover of the second volume is coming to the Paizo store soon. I was talking to Katina, our store manager, and it may be there as soon as the end of this episode. So make sure you go to the Paizo store today or over the weekend and see what that final cover for volume 2 is going to look like. Gentlemen, I'm going to keep moving forward into our next adventure category, and that's a Pathfinder adventure called Malevolence. We have a new standalone printed adventure coming at the end of April, and here's what we know. Malevolence is a horror-themed adventure for third-level characters written by James Jacobs, featuring sinister new monsters, mysterious magical items and spells to discover, and a fully detailed haunted house for players to explore, exercise, and endure. With an immersive method of researching and the history and truths of the mansion's macabre secrets through visions, dreams, and good old-fashioned ghost hunting and investigation, Malevolence is ready to test the limits of any heroic party's bravery. That sounds amazing. Now, I'm hoping to get Mr. Jacobs on in 3 weeks for the next episode of Paizo Live. But gentlemen, here with me today, what can you tell us about it to whet our appetites? Have you been able to touch it? It sounds like there are some interesting rules and systems built into it that perhaps the design team touched.
I was the design lead on Malevolence, which mostly means I looked at the rules, including the ones in the toolbox. I would say the most interesting thing to me in terms of the rules was the really cool way that James told the story through a variety of different haunts that are not just a hazard that does something bad to you necessarily, but sort of an ongoing event and story where you can learn more about the backstory and all that's going on that just sort of pervades the adventure. So I'd say that's probably the thing that's really more different in the design of this adventure.
Excellent, thank you. That's a great introduction. Are there more insights that you have to share, Patrick or Jason?
I think if anyone can tell an awesome ghost story, it's James Jacobs.
Yeah.
He's kind of a master at this. The weird and there's always more to it than you think originally, right? So I'm not going to spoil anything, obviously, but there's a lot going on in this spooky house.
Excellent. I love it. It'll be a great not a one-shot adventure. We'll talk about that in a moment. This is a standalone single adventure that should really fuel your adventures for multiple nights, multiple sessions. So let's talk about our newest product line, Pathfinder one-shots. We released our first standalone PDF one-shot adventure, Sundered Waves, just a few weeks ago. And here's what we know already. It's a short Pathfinder 2nd Edition adventure written by Mr. Jason Bulmahn, and it's intended to be completed in a single session in about 3 or 4 hours. It includes 4 5th-level pre-generated characters whose backstories and motivations tie closely into the plot of the adventure. And it can be easily incorporated into various virtual tabletops, run off digital devices, or printed out and played at a table. Jason, please tell us more about this. I have some specific questions for you, but do you just want to tell us how you went about creating this one shot, a new product line?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I've spent a lot of time over the past couple of years running games, kind of online or in a digital space for folks, especially with Band of Bravos over the past year. And when we sat down and looked at our adventuring offerings, one of the things we realized is that we didn't have a good way to just be like, come sit down and play for a few hours, low barrier to entry, here are characters, go. And so when I started Sundered Waves, one of the big things I was particularly excited about was this ability to craft both the characters and the story, right? Because it allowed me to create characters who the story can be to some extent about them. And in this case, it's a group of pirates who have been split up for a number of years, who have gotten back together for one last mission. It also features a clockwork parrot, so that's good. Because it's a pirate themed adventure. So I had a lot of fun with it. And it comes with all the digital assets you need to run it on a digital tabletop. Comes with pre-generated characters. It's really there to kind of just give you a quick, easy way to give Pathfinder a try, to jump right into the game.
That's great. I'm so excited to be able to share this with our community. I think it'll be great it's great for people during pandemic times to just play with their friends. And I think we're really hoping that our streamer community, really appreciates the ability to take something that's sort of been prepackaged and take the ball and run with it. And I'm excited that this is a great first outing, but there's more to come.
Yeah, there are.
Throughout the year. Yeah, which I'll let everybody know. We haven't announced what those are. There will be one Starfinder and one Pathfinder one-shot each released at PaizoCon. Look for details later in April as to what they are. We're keeping that a little close to our chest at the moment. I will make sure that I mention that you can find out more about Sundered Waves by just going to paizo.com. You can see on our landing page, on our home page, there's a great big banner there that you can click on. It'll take you right to the product page. You can also go to paizo.com/sunderedwaves. We've got a nice vanity URL for easy memory, so you can always find it on the Paizo website. Here's a great image of the pre-generated characters, the four of the characters you can see in the cover there. And then, I think we really, this just reminds me of the Pathfinder Beginner Box, the great art and the great characters that we presented in the Pathfinder Beginner Box that make it really easy for someone to pick up the game and just go. And I think the Sundered Waves really carries that idea forward. It just looks beautiful to me. Jason,
the characters also come with full backstories too, and notes on how they know each other and what their general impressions are. I've seen this run by a number of groups now, and it's always kind of fun to watch how different people play different characters. One of the characters, mild spoiler, doesn't really remember one of the other characters. They haven't seen each other in years and doesn't remember his name at all. It's kind of like, oh, it's you.
Hey, you! It's so good to see you.
So, there's some fun things that I was just able to kind of do and set up, and it's been a real delight to hear stories about how people play with the various characters and how they interact with each other.
That's great. Certainly, we produced a 10-episode series that people can find on our YouTube channel, and I believe you played it with some friends just last weekend, and And so there's a few really quality productions out there that I think people can get a taste of it and then take it home to their own table and play with their friends. Were there any other comments we wanted to make about the digital support that comes with this that's maybe a little unusual? I think the images are very high resolution. I think we've got a nice, if you happen to be streaming, we've got some nice frames for people to use on Twitch.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're also right in the middle of getting these exported to the various digital tabletops.
I did want to mention that. It's already on Fantasy Grounds now, thank you very much, and is scheduled to be available on Roll20 on Wednesday, April 7th. And I know a lot of people have been waiting for that. So, you can use the VTT partner of your choice and use these to stream Sundered Waves. So we look forward to more of these adventures throughout the year. I think now we're gonna wrap up this segment, but before we go, we're going to. It's time for your Paizo Live spoiler. This is one we've leaked plenty of teasers throughout the session, but Patrick, is there one specific Paizo Live spoiler that you'd like to share with everyone?
For sure, yeah. So there's kind of a it's a 3-volume arc with this Fist of the Ruby Phoenix. So obviously, if you're going to be in the pre-qualifier in the first volume and in the actual tournament in the second volume, well, there's one more volume. So there is, just a teensy hiccup in the competition that I think a lot of people might find pretty interesting. And it involves one of our own kaiju named Mogaru when he starts rampaging through Goka. So that's a bit of a problem. Excellent.
A big problem. Koju, what size do we classify?
Oh, kaiju, they're kind of a thing of their own, they're bigger than skyscrapers.
Yeah. Okay. Enough said. And you are, I wanted to give everybody a chance to talk about their Twitter handles, but I don't believe you're on Twitter, correct?
No, you have to go to paizo.com and buy all of the Fist of the Ruby Phoenix and then solve the puzzle to discover my secret Twitter.
Excellent. I love it. Mark, let's switch over to you and find out what your Paizo spoiler is.
My Paizo Live spoiler is about the treatises at the beginning of Secrets of Magic. So there are treatises about the 4 traditions of magic: arcane, divine, occult, and primal, written by Mikhail Raccoon, Shiv Ramdas, John Compton, and Simone de Soleil, plus a treatise on the 4 magic essences that make up all magic that I wrote, and then treatises on the schools of magic written by Leanne Merciel. And I think that people are really going to enjoy some of the sort of details in there. To give a quick one, there are little signs like you might have for the Zodiac, but for the schools of magic. So evocations, harmonic colors are white, blue, orange, gray. Their body of the celestial body is sun. Season is summer. Plant is the fireburst flower. Animal is hawk. Stone is aquamarine and spessartite. And the harrow cards are bear and cyclone. So there's all sorts of stuff like this so that you can learn more about the schools of magic, the traditions of magic, and the essences that make it all up.
That's great. So much lore, so many specifics that let you really fully envision your character and how it relates to magic. That's great. And what's your Twitter handle, Mark?
It's just my name, so at Mark Seifter.
Excellent. Easy enough. Jason, what's your Pathfinder Live spoiler, sir? You don't really have any insights to share, do you?
Well, I mean, most of what I work on is so far in advance. I can't give spoilers about it because we haven't announced it yet. So instead, I'm just going to go big, and I'm just going to open up Secrets of Magic and just start reading it. So, page 2, Table of Contents. Introduction. Page 4. Essentials of Magic, page 6. Oh, wait. No, that's probably not good enough. I don't think I could read the whole thing. I think instead, what I'll do is I'll give people a little hint about the Magus. I know a lot of people have been asking about it lately, about how the Magus kind of came out. And I know we've given, a couple hints about how the Magus spell strike works. So I'm gonna let you know a little bit more about how spell strike works. Now, we've changed it from the playtest. So the team took all of the playtest feedback and really kind of came out with some really awesome ways that some of these things could work. So one of the biggest pieces of feedback we got was that Spell Strike required you still to make an attack roll with your weapon and an attack roll with the spell. Yeah, we got rid of that. Now it's one roll, and it applies for both. So if you roll really well, you're really going to cream somebody. If you roll really poorly, you're going to waste that whole action. So it is really kind of exciting how that works now. I do want to note, though, that you can't just do this constantly, right? That's not going to be everything you do. Your Spell Strike is going to need some recharging now and then, but it does now work on one roll. So that's my big spoiler. I'm not going to go into any more details because I think the team will hunt me down and hurt me. So
that's great. Thank you so much, Jason. Where can they find you on Twitter?
Folks can find me on Twitter and basically all of the various forms of social media at / or at Jason Bulmahn. That's JASONBULMAHN.
Thank you, sir. I want to thank you all for joining me this afternoon. Now we're going to take a short break and come back with our segment on Pathfinder Lost Omens and Paizo Organized Play. I think we might be having a little audio visual lack of synchronicity, so we might take it. We're scheduled for 4 minutes, but I'm just going to say if we need to take the time to do whatever we need to do, it might be a little longer than that. So we'll see you in at least 4 minutes with Pathfinder Lost Omens and Paizo Organized Play. See you soon.
Paizo's newest releases arrive at your favorite local game store and Paizo.com on February 24th. The Pathfinder Lost Omens Ancestry Guide places the spotlight on the ancestries and heritages of the Inner Sea, like Geniekin, androids, kitsune, sprites, and more, providing information on their cultures and place in the world and more with 350 new ancestry feats to round out any character concept. The Pathfinder Advanced Player's Guide is now available in Pocket Edition. This full-color softcover rulebook contains the Investigator, Oracle, Swashbuckler, and Witch classes, plus new ancestries, backgrounds, heritages, and feats. New adventures for Pathfinder and Starfinder are now available. A time-displaced alchemist hires the characters to clear out his former master's abode, which has become infested with oozes over the intervening millennia in Pathfinder Bounty Cleanup Duty. This one-hour adventure is easily placed into any fantasy campaign. The Pathfinder Adventure Path Abomination Vaults continues with Hands of the Devil, in which the heroes explore a sprawling mega-dungeon to stop an ancient evil from extracting its monstrous vengeance. The White Glove Affair continues the Fly for Your Die adventure path for Starfinder, in which players take on the role of a merchant crew with an experimental starship, trying to get rich, escape interplanetary assassins, and outwit their rivals. If you're looking for more standalone, single-session adventures for your game, discover these new Pathfinder Society and Starfinder Society releases. Each can be easily adapted for an evening of tabletop gaming. Snakes in the Grass dispatches Pathfinder player characters to secure agreements with the Hobgoblin Nation. It's all up to the characters to make a strong impression with the Hobgoblins, all while foiling any attempts of a rival organization to make inroads of their own. Called to the city capital, a group of Pathfinders quickly find themselves assigned to investigate a clandestine fighting tournament taking place in the streets in a gilded test. Pathfinder Adventure Path Lost in Flames. A group of heroes must uncover the truth behind what is happening around the ruins of a Cyclops city and begin putting a stop to a plan set in motion thousands of years ago. In the Starfinder adventure Clone Batch Catastrophe, the heroes discover an automated system that has produced clones of a single person to populate most of the large underground cavern. Can the Starfinders uncover the source of the malfunction and save the vault's residents before it's too late? In Secrets and Stillness, the Starfinders travel to a Kazathan world ship to follow a bloody trail left by a clever killer, and, if they aren't careful, risk becoming the enigmatic predator's next prey. Whether your party is looking for contacts in the criminal underworld or fleeing from an angry thieves guild, the Pathfinder Flipmat Classics Red Light District is the perfect accessory for your urban encounters. Aliens and NPCs come alive on your tabletop with the Devastation Arc Pawn Collection, featuring more than 100 creature pawns with a Starfinder adventure path of the same name and easily adaptable to any tabletop science fantasy RPG. Stage the scene for epic science fantasy adventures with the Starfinder Flip Tiles Alien Planet Starter Set. This boxed collection of map tiles can be used to construct never-ending extraterrestrial jungles full of strange hazards and deserts teeming with bizarre fauna, providing tons of options for planetary encounters. And finally, 5 new alien species await you with Starfinder Alien Character Cards. Whether you're a player who wants an easy reminder of your character's racial traits or a game master looking to quickly populate a Katina on a distant world, this deck features beautiful full-color art and PC-focused rules references. Find your path to friendship and adventure with these new releases and more at Paizo.com and your favorite local game store.
Hello, and welcome back to Paizo Live. I'm Aaron Shanks, your host. Now we get a great segment on the Lost Omens setting line and the Paizo Organized Play organization. And our guests today, we have 2 guests. Eleanor Ferron, developer. Hello, thanks for joining us. Good
Thanks
evening.
for having us.
Yes, and what is it that you do as a developer for the Lost Omens line?
You can consider me the director of a book. It's our job to pitch the overall topic. It's our job to outline what aspects of the world we want to see in that book. It's our job to pick the authors for those sections. And once we get the writing back for them, it's our job to make sure it all flows together. There's no continuity issues because we had different authors. That it all has the same tone and overall Paizo style of writing. It's our job to order art to best convey the ideas that are provided in that book, and it's our job to lay it out on the page when all of that's done.
Sounds like an incredibly, both incredibly creative and necessitates an eye for detail. That's amazing.
It does require some multitasking.
Our second guest is Linda Zayas-Palmer, Organized Play Managing Developer. Thanks for joining us, Linda.
Glad to be here.
You, of course, joined us last month, and we're happy to have you back this month. Originally, we were hoping to get Mike Kimmel on, but he's feeling a little ill today, so thank you so much for stepping in. It's going to be a privilege to get your insights. So tell us a bit about what you do as Organized Play Managing Developer, please.
So what I do centers around the management aspect. So there's a lot of communication, coordination, planning, and meetings and things like that. And I also do a development pass on every product that Organized Play produces, as well as the bounties, which are produced by the Organized Play team, but not technically Organized Play Adventures, and we'll be talking about here in a little bit.
Exactly. It's great to have you to talk about that, because there's a little bit of confusion, but it's really great. But first, let's just talk about where the Pathfinder Lost Omens setting is in the big picture. Let's sum up the entire setting line so far. In little more than 18 months, we have the World Guide, the Character Guide, the Gods and Magic, Legends, Pathfinder Society Guide, Ancestry Guide, and coming soon, MWANGI EXPANSE and the Grand Bazaar. And of course, City of Absalom is announced, but it was delayed because our fearless leader, Eric Mona, decided it needed to be expanded with a ton of NPCs, among other details. So my understanding is that is now on track to release around November. So it's been announced for some time, and we're eager to get it into your hands. But since I have both of you together, I'd love to circle back and talk about the Pathfinder Lost Omens Pathfinder Society Guide hardcover specifically. I think it's a great intersection between the Lost Omens work that you do, Eleanor, and of course the society that you help manage, Linda. I will just summarize what it is for everyone. It details everything players and GMs need to know about Pathfinder Society, from the basics of membership to the society's various factions, to the various lodges littered throughout the Inner Sea region. It's also the go-to source for the history and lore of the Pathfinder Society, and features all sorts of new rules like equipment, wayfinders, archetypes, and it's really a must-have for anyone who participates in the real-world Pathfinder Society. That's kind of it in a nutshell. And I think I'd like to just sort of talk to both of you about your experience in putting the book together, what you were able to contribute, how well it's been received, and memories of what it contains inside. Linda, do you want to go first this time and talk about your experiences with this guide?
Yeah, I can do that. So, since this book is about the Pathfinder Society, the in-world organization, and that's something that the Pathfinder Society developers have worked with a lot. We certainly did have a role here in helping to shape this book. A lot of us did freelance writing for it, but when it came time to actually develop and put all that together, that was the Lost Omens developers.
Excellent. Well, we've got some art to show from inside the book. Eleanor, do you want to tell us about your experience of putting the book together and what you think it brings to the game?
That was definitely interesting, considering it was so heavily involving a department which we often don't interact with, because it's summing up the history of the Pathfinder Society, and a lot of that's been told through the adventures that our PCs have played through over 10 years of history. But they're also very tied up in Galarian as a whole. I mean, if you go anywhere in the world, you'll find Pathfinders have somehow snuck their way in there too, which is what makes them interesting, even if you're not interested in organized play society on the whole. But there's just it was really interesting seeing it take shape, especially because I wasn't the expert on the topic. It was really handing it over, our outline, to the people who are working on organized play, and seeing what they created, the summary of this project and world that they've been working on for over 10 years, and then putting it all together to show to the world and sum it all up, basically.
If I recall correctly, you and Luis were working on the Pathfinder first edition product lines that were very similar to this hardcover series. So you had a history with Pathfinder overall and its lore. And then and so now in Pathfinder second edition, these are beautiful hardcovers, which I think are just incredibly popular. People love to get them in their hands. And the art, oh my goodness, the art has been smashing. So well done in your ordering. And so, yeah, this is an opportunity. Adventures and adventure paths inform society and inspire society. And now society has a chance to inspire and inform the setting in return, is what it sounds like has happened. It's been...
like, if you look through all of the books, especially when it comes to setting stuff, I know people are excited for MWANGI EXPANSE, and even going in there, it's like, oh look, there's some important Pathfinders here and there. So when I say they really get everywhere, they really get everywhere, and so it's an important to know what they are up to, just to contextualize the world as a whole. Because they've been involved in a lot of high-profile events, and they have a lot of very powerful people just wandering around the world and bringing back knowledge to the society in Absalom. And so they're tied up in a lot of plot hooks and just unique items and history and all kinds of good stuff that even if your players don't want to be a part of that society, they may want to seek them out just to, get some good details on maybe something that happened in the past, or something that they want to discover for themselves or make for themselves.
As I've
They
gotten
make
to know,
really good rivals too. And that's one of the things that I thought was really fun about freelancing for this book is that the kinds of questions that you asked in these entries for these Pathfinder lodges, sometimes these are things that we just sort of took for granted and never bothered to answer specifically. Like, specifically, what are the rivals to this lodge? Or what does this lodge have to provide? Or what are the kinds of themes of missions that you might get out of this area? So how is this lodge, beyond these specific missions, what are these broad trends about this lodge and what it's about? So that was really working on this book helped the Pathfinder Society developers a lot to solidify some of those things that either had never been said or had just sort of been assumed you can pick up the pieces, but putting that out there in a way that our players and GMs can really engage with.
it's beautiful. You know, Pathfinder has a reputation for being crunchy in terms of rules crunch, but this book really exemplifies lore crunch. You know, it's just really a lot of detail about a vivid and dynamic world that's been created by the team over years. And it's exciting to see. I like to think that as I've gotten to know the Pathfinder community over the last few years, you know, there are veterans who can pick up this book and have been playing for a long time, but still have something to learn from it. And then there are new players who maybe have come to the Pathfinder Society. They're new and they're looking to get involved. And here's this entire book that just fleshes out all the details they'd ever want to know. And that can be really inspiring for new players to be able to pick up something and go, I can see myself in this. This is a world that's already created, and I know exactly where I want to be. I've seen it done. And then also for homebrewers, as you were saying, Eleanor, you know, not everybody necessarily is a part of the society, but they might not play it in the real world, but they can use the Pathfinder Society in game to flesh out their own adventures and the stories that they want to tell. So I just wanted to revisit this book in Paizo Live today because I think it's a really Swiss Army knife of a book that everybody should make sure that they're aware of. So that's what I wanted to do today. Are there any other final thoughts on what makes the or what people should look for in the Society Guide going forward?
You should look for and pick up a Dwemer kitten.
A Dwemer kitten. Thank you. Yeah, let's just let them find that. I think that's a good scavenger hunt to do. So let's. That's a good segue from cuteness in the Society Guide to I want to revisit the Ancestry Guide. Since we have Eleanor with us, let's revisit the Pathfinder Lost Omens Guide. We know that it places the spotlight on the uncommon and rare ancestries of the Inner Sea, like geniekin, androids, kitsune. I understand there's two different pronunciations of that possible, but you can help me with that.
There's one correct.
There's one correct. Excellent. And anyway, it provides information on all the cultures and places of the world and really goes into the unusual ancestries of the Lost Omens world. So yeah, take the ball, run with it, Eleanor. Tell us about kitsune or however it's pronounced, correctly pronounced, and your journey with this book, because the art is amazing and it's been really well received from my perspective.
Well, okay, so the correct way is kitsune. Please do not with any kitsun or kitsune.
Thank you.
Any other combinations you can come up with, it's kitsune. But yeah, I think a lot of people are really enthusiastic for this book, and I mean, it's basically it's who you are. I think almost as much as your classes, and because of the way that ancestries and versatile heritages work, every new ancestry and versatile heritage that comes out can combine and create even more possibilities and concepts to create the character you want in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So I'm not surprised that people were really enthusiastic for this, especially with, you know, some of the fan favorites like the geniekin being in there. The beastkin, I know lots of people are interested in lycanthropy. without necessarily breaking the game every time there's a full moon and having to stop your adventure because you went out and ate 5 peasants. But so these are really exciting to be added into the game and for people to just be able to expand their creativity just that much more. But I also really enjoyed the expanded ancestries and heritages that we put in. I think, they're not the new hotness, so they didn't necessarily get as much excitement over it. But at the same time, it's the role of the core rule books to present things in their broadest concept so that people understand what they are when they encounter it. It's the role of the Lost Omens world guides to show all sorts of different takes on that to expand your idea of what it could be. I think that came through most of the Leshy art, which I think people have really responded well to. Like the cactus Leshy, I know caught a lot of attention. But just, the pangolin Leshy that was made up of a succulent and maybe a pear or a gourd or something like that. Just the idea that you don't have to make it this little green humanoid creature. It can be anything you want because Leshies are constructed. Their bodies are constructed by somebody. So they could be a work of art, or they could be a cute little animal, or they could really be anything so long as you make it up of, the plants that Leshy bodies needs to host that spirit. And so, I really enjoyed seeing the art for the Leshies come in to try and show just how expansive the concept could be. And even with, heritages, the versatile heritages, you can add on all sorts of things. You could have an Undyne Leshy and be like a little goldfish that has a flower on its head or something that swims through the water. I know people have talked about Ifrit Leshies for hot peppers and stuff like that. It's all very, very fun. And I think that's the most important part of it all, is that it's very fun.
I think the combinations of heritages and ancestries, and it's so versatile. The ways in which they could be combined are so interesting that it inspires creativity through its structure. You can start to combine unusual things in your head that you never thought you'd be able to combine before. And what I have found by reading your work is that you have written it in such a way that it's still plausible. Like, I can take what you've written and combine these two seemingly disparate things, but there's a story there because I'm willing to figure out how it works. And I see that personally, and I see a lot of people doing that on the interwebs, and it's exciting to see. So congratulations.
I definitely, one of the things that I think people like to do the most is try and combine things in a way that doesn't make sense. But in doing so, they sort of try and massage it into a unique character idea. Yeah. Like somebody asked me, well, a Dampier android is, and I gave an example of, like, something that had been technologically corrupted and was maybe drinking fluids to try and cycle it through their circuitry and keep it going. And somebody mentioned, Beastkin android. Well, that's just Beast Words. Or Dampier Leshy. Well, that's a Pumpkaboo from Pokemon. But you could also, there's actually a myth in the Balkans about vampire watermelons, which is a real thing, and look it up. But you could base a Leshy off of that, and that's really just exciting.
It is exciting. It's seemingly whimsical, and it can be whimsical, but it can also be absolutely sincere, and I love that about it. Linda, I just anecdotally, I think you've got a history with the Leshies yourself, and I'm not necessarily aware of the backstory. Do you want to share it with? Is there something to share with our viewers that?
Well. How did
the
Leshies?
Yeah, were you involved in the creation of them? Do you consider yourself a Leshy champion within the company? Is it that you just particularly love them? I just wanted to check in.
So I didn't do the original Bestiary Leshies in first edition, which are different from sort of the folkloric Leshy. But I really did come to love the little guys, and then John Compton, who I shared an office with then, and we worked together in the organized play team, just kind of had this exaggerated eye rolling thing going on, where whenever I talk about Leshies, he'd be like. So I pasted up all these Leshy posters all over our door. I kept taking on more and more Leshy-based assignments. And, somewhere between, liking something and then exaggerating liking something, they just kind of became my favorite little plant babies. But it was funny because I also wasn't the one who initially had the idea to make Leshies in Ancestry in second edition. But when that idea started coming up, through the company, people were like, "Hey, Linda, you want to champion this?" And it's like, well, yeah, okay. I would love it if Leshies were in Ancestry. So
thank you for that story. That's what I wanted to hear, because I think it's great. I think it's a little inside moment that it's fun to share on Paizo Live. All right. So we've had a nice conversation about the Ancestry Guide, but looking ahead, the next Lost Omens hardcover will be the MWANGI Expanse, and it's described as home to an untold diversity of cultures and peoples since time immemorial, hosting powerful isolated city-states that have often paid little attention to their neighbors. Yet the turning of the tides of fortune have begun to usher in changes that are rippling across the world. You can find a lot more details about this book on our product page on Paizo.com. And I wanted to start checking in with you, Eleanor, about this upcoming book. It says here that the image is not final, but I know that is art that was, I believe that's art. Well, no, actually that was previously seen in another hardcover, now that I think about it. So
no, that art is the final cover.
Yeah. So it's just so gorgeous. I want it to be the final.
It is. Don't worry.
Good. So it may be that the layout isn't, it's probably, once again, that our art department is not finished with the fonts and the logos and all of that. So it's not final in their eyes, but I believe that is the art. Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, I don't really know why it's not considered the final. Maybe it's just because the book will be a lot bigger than is pictured there.
Indeed.
Pages.
But that's darn close. We'll put it that way. I understand. Gosh, do you want to tell us what direction this book is headed? How it will expand the Lost Omens world? Just to give people a little insight as to where it's going.
That sounds an awful lot like a spoiler, Aaron.
So how about just a teaser?
I can say a little about how the book is organized. We've talked about the MWANGI Expanse in Pathfinder previously, but it's always been very scattered. There's always been details that have been glossed over, and it's always been from the point of view of visitors to the place and not the people who live there. And it was very important to us that this book was focused on the people who live there and their stories and their day-to-day lives and their adventures. So to that end, the first big chapter in this book after the introduction is going to be about the people of the MWANGI Expanse, and not just the human groups. We talk about them, the human ethnicities, but we also went out of our way to talk about the 3 elven groups that we know live there, the Ekuje, the Alije, the Kalije. We went out of our way to talk about the dwarven groups that live in the mountains there, the Taralu and the Mbeke, and the Songo halflings that we've had come up before, the orcs. They've been called Rainkin in the past, but they are named Matangi in this book. And then the new ancestries that people are excited about. The Gripply, the Nadi, the Kanrasu, the Shisk, the Knolls, and I'm forgetting one. Galoma.
There are 6. Does that sound right?
Yes.
I think you just listed 6. That's great. If we want to transition to our next image, I understand this is an image that Eric Mona just recently shared with in a presentation with some gathered retailers. It's one of the Gripply, I think. Does that look right to you, Eleanor?
Yeah, it's a little frog person. That's the Gripply.
Yeah.
That is actually a picture that is going to be showing up in the adventure path that will be set in the MWANGI Expanse, Strength of Thousands. And so that's like a little preview for people here.
Exactly.
Yeah, people have been really fond of the Gripply. They almost made it into the Lost Omens character guide. They got edged out by Leshies. So you can, if you're a lover of the Gripply, you can curse up a little other green ancestry.
But they're on their way, and there are going to be 6 more ancestries in the
5 more.
5 more. 5 more. 6 total, exactly, in the MWANGI Expanse. And boy, I can only tell you that there's a lot of gorgeous art in this book, and I'll be looking for the opportunity to showcase it in Paizo Lives to come and at PaizoCon at the end of May. There's just going to be so many seminars and so much art. We're still working on it. It's going to be a big hill to climb, but we're really excited to share it with all of you. What else did I want to say about the MWANGI Expanse, except stay tuned for more?
If you want to talk to Linda, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we should check in with Linda and just see. We've heard that the Pathfinder Society is everywhere, and I assume that they're in the MWANGI Expanse as well. Do you have any insights as to how this book is going to relate to society?
The Pathfinder Society have very much been one of those many groups that Eleanor was talking about. That's primarily been coming from outside of the MWANGI Expanse and exploring. But with the additional options in this book, there's going to be a lot more support for playing characters that are from the MWANGI Expanse, and I'll be super excited to see that happen in society as well as getting to expand a lot. I mean, like Eleanor said, there were a lot of things that were just kind of mentioned vaguely, and we weren't really sure what those were yet, or that had a lot of room to grow. So this is definitely going to be one of those books that inspires a lot of stories.
Thank you so much.
I do know that Fulla Baran, who is one of the faction heads of the Pathfinder Society, she's an Ekuj half-elf. So that's going to tell a little more about the place that she came from. But what I wanted to interrupt and be rude about, sorry, Aaron, you mentioned before that you can find a lot of more details on the MWANGI Expanse product page, and those details include the authors of this book, which is another thing that I'm very excited about. And to the point that we made sure those authors got their contributor copy PDFs of this book early so that they could talk about their work on the setting to other people. And so, I want to encourage people to go out and talk to these authors, check out what they're doing outside of Paizo, interview them, possibly see what work they've done on this really great book that is about to come out. And I did that specifically so that if you want to try and get a sneak peek early before PaizoCon drops all of this information, you need to go out and talk to them. Don't talk to us. Go talk to these amazing authors.
They're doing great work. Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I don't have any announcements to make, but I'm working behind the scenes to try to have some of those authors either on a future Paizo Live or at PaizoCon, because I think we really need some of those voices to just be in front of the camera, because they're going to have a lot of great stories and perspectives to share. That's one of the things I'm just getting started with Paizo Live, but it's not going to just be staff members. It'll be freelancers too, as I find my stride. I wanted to move along to the Pathfinder bounties and touch on Paizo organized play scenarios. We're running a little long, but I don't mind it at all, considering how much fun it was to talk about all the topics we've been talking about already. But I did want to touch base about Pathfinder bounties. So Linda, let's talk about them. We already know that bounties are first level 1 hour one-shots designed to be quick, easy, and versatile. I believe there's 7 or 8 now. And let's just talk about how the organized play team is involved in these. Of course, originally we were going to have Mike talk about this. What can you share with us?
Yeah, so bounties were originally an idea that Mike Sayer had of adventures that did not assume that the PCs who were playing them were members of the Pathfinder Society. They could be adventures that maybe described what Pathfinder Society characters did between missions, or otherwise just adventures that anyone can come up and play. And so that idea evolved into the idea of bounties as they are now, where bounties are these, like you said, 1 hour standalone adventures that are accessible to any first level PC. Anybody who would see that there's a bounty posted on the mission board or hear a request for help and say, hey, you know, this is something I'd want to get involved in. And the person who was originally going to be on the show here talking about them is Mike Kimmel. And Mike Kimmel is the developer who has really become the champion of these bounties. He's been the one who's outlining them and assigning them and doing all of the work to make those happen.
Excellent, thank you. You know, I've been suggesting to people who might want to have a second level adventure that they might want to practice their GM skills in understanding how you can sort of increase the challenge rating of these one shots on their own. So while they're all first level at the moment, I think that there's an opportunity there to sharpen your GM skills and make them suit the group you have. And I wanted to make sure people were aware of them. And at some point we will get Mike on, and we'll have him share his perspective in that journey.
And as you speak of scaling, bounties do have scaling in them as well. They're written for groups of 4 players, but they also have instructions to scale them up for 5 players and 6 players as well.
That's great. Thank you for that insight. Here's a look at some of the images we've used so far inside the bounties. It's definitely like a wanted poster. You can see monsters and a mystery box and a cart there, a traveler's cart. And then inside, you know, we've got some of the great art that you'll normally find inside a Pathfinder adventure, like that skeleton warrior there. So Mike had picked those out to showcase all the great images and art that goes into a bounty. They are PDF only products, and they're just a few dollars each, really. So you can go on to Paizo.com and download them today, and just jump right in with first level encounters and really get some confidence in playing Pathfinder 2nd Edition.
And those images there, I mean, I can guess at what he might have been trying to say by picking those 3 images, because on the left there, on the far left image there, you had a puzzle box, which is from an adventure that centers around a riddle. Then the middle one, you have one where you're guarding. There's adventures where you're guarding a wagon, where you're hunting down infamous monsters, where you're trying to handle what happens when a cheerful, happy festival goes awry. Really, there's a huge variety of things that you can do in these adventures. And since they don't assume that the PCs are members of the Pathfinder Society, there doesn't necessarily have to be a reason why a League of Explorers would want to get involved. You could have a fishing contest. You could be doing pretty much anything, really. And these adventures have covered a wide gamut.
Thank you. That's great insight, and it does showcase their versatility. That's exactly why he chose them, I'm sure. And they come out every month. There's a new one every month, and soon there will be a collection of them. And I've suggested it's possible to purchase them all and do a string of little first level adventures, and call yourself bounty hunters. And I would say that's a really great little thing to stream on Twitch, and to our community. You might want to think about that. So let's move on to the Paizo Organized Play scenarios that have been released this month. We've already posted a blog about that, introducing all the scenarios, and they were available for download this last Wednesday. Linda, what can you tell us about them in a nutshell?
So we had 4 scenarios that just came out. One of them is a Pathfinder Society scenario for level 3 to 6 characters called A Dirge for Sarkoris. this adventure goes into the Sarkoris Scar, what was left behind when that awful rift into the abyss, the world wound, was closed. There's still all sorts of demonic influence and corruption and chaos that infuses the land. So in this one, the PCs team back up with some of their old allies in the Farhaven clan to try to handle some of this corruption and help them recover the remains of their honored ancestors.
Thank you.
The other one that we've got coming out on the Pathfinder Society side is a level 5 to 8 called Freedom for Wishes. And the premise for this adventure is sort of what happens when wishcrafting goes wrong. When an unscrupulous genie binder gets a little bit too arrogant in his ways and winds up having the genies turn against him. And this unscrupulous genie binder, Corvius Vane, is someone who the PCs had a run-in with in an adventure Slaver's End late in the Pathfinder Society First Edition campaign. And so folks who have had a run-in with him in that scenario can gain some special benefits when they're playing this adventure and really deciding what should be done with this rather unscrupulous individual as you untangle what's going on with this wild, out of control magic.
And then we have the Starfinder scenarios.
Yeah, that's right. So we've got 2 this month, and they are on complete opposite ends of the level spectrum. So we've got a level 1 to 4 quest pack. So this is a collection of 4 one-hour adventures, which you can play in any order. And together they've got a mixture of infiltration, exploration, uncovering weird lost memories. But they've also got the fast-paced battles and a climactic race against time. And the person who's giving you missions in these, if you're familiar with Datch, one of the villains that Starfinder Society players love to hate, but decided that they wanted to keep her around. Datch is going to be providing some information here with her trademark snarky sense of humor. And then the last one we've got is the first ever level 11 to 14 scenario for Starfinder Society, Fleeting Truth, Ever-Changing Revelation. And that's going to cap off an adventure arc that is about trying to save data from destruction at the hands of some rather determined Hell Knights. And this adventure takes the PCs to Octurne, which has all sorts of elder mythos threats brewing in it. So you take a dash of mythos threats and you throw in a sparkle? I don't think they'd use sparkle. A sprinkle of the forces of hell, and you get the mess that the PCs are walking straight into in this adventure. So hopefully they'll be able to keep their wits about them and survive to the end.
Excellent. I just want to give a shout out for Scoured Stars. That's our Starfinder live play that happens every Wednesday night. It's based on Starfinder Society, and it's a limited run of about 10 episodes. So you can find episodes on YouTube now, and they're very episodic, just like Starfinder Societies are, so that it's great to sort of start at the beginning and watch them all, but each one is rather self-contained as well. So you find that on Paizo's YouTube channel. Let's now move on to your Paizo Live spoilers. Eleanor, what's your Paizo Live spoiler for the Lost Omens?
I'm going to spoil a god from the upcoming MWANGI Expanse book. Her name is Adanye. She is a catfolk god. Her name is the Warmth of the Hearth, and she is the god of the home and all kinds of that cozy feeling you have when you're sitting at home by a nice warm fire and there's a cat purring on the flagstones. And maybe, just maybe, the cat might protect you from bad things at night, like evil spirits. So that's sort of what sums her up.
Oh, so she's not going to be. Go ahead.
If you see a cat hanging out in Galarian by the fire, you should be nice to it because you never know.
Excellent. She's not going to be popular at all. Oh, goodness. Okay. Oh, That's wonderful. Thank you very much. And where can people find you on Twitter, Eleanor?
I am on Twitter, but I don't make it easy for them.
Okay, that's fine too. Yes, it's a scavenger hunt. That's something I intend to build into Paizo Live, and you already have started it. Linda, we want to move to your Paizo Live spoiler?
Yeah, so this spoiler combines both the bounty section and the organized play section. So I believe it was last time on Paizo Live that I mentioned for the first time that we were going to be having these scenarios for Pathfinder Society that are going to be premiering in August with the new season. And there's going to be one that's an introduction for, hey, what's the Pathfinder Society? One that is all about the factions, and one that's all about the season. To get a little more specific on that faction one, that faction scenario is only going to be looking at the 4 major factions. But the Pathfinder Society also has 2 minor factions, and those aren't getting left out. What we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be producing 2 bounties, bounties 13 and 14. And in each of those bounties, one of the minor faction leaders is going to be bringing in some outside help to assist with missions. So these are going to be missions that don't assume that your characters are Pathfinders, just like is standard for bounties, but that do give more of a look into what's going on with the society and let those other factions have a chance to shine.
That's great. We love a little crossover at Paizo, in which you can sort of check out the society if you want to find more. That's going to be exciting. And I don't believe you're on Twitter. So thank you very much for your time. Now we're going to take a short break, about 3 minutes, and come back with our final segment on the Starfinder role-playing game with a big announcement that you're not going to want to miss. See you soon.
On the southern coast of Starstone Isle, not far from the town of Otari, the Gauntlet stands shrouded by cloying mists atop a centuries-old ruin in the Fogfin Swamp. Now, a pallid new light glows from within the ancient edifice, beckoning novice explorers to delve deep into the marsh to discover the truth behind the awakened radiance. The town elders of Otari say that the old lighthouse has been abandoned for ages, that the swamp itself holds little danger to the town. The town elders are wrong. Into the Mega Dungeon, the all-new Abomination Vault's adventure path for the Pathfinder role-playing game peels back layer after layer of mystery, intrigue, and terror in a 3-volume campaign of dungeon exploration and thrilling discovery, designed especially with new players in mind. The priceless plunder of long centuries awaits those bold enough to enter the sprawling Abomination Vaults, but claiming it requires facing off against a horde of hideous monsters, deadly traps, and vengeful ghosts with long memories and inhuman hungers. The Abomination Vault's adventure path works with the Pathfinder Beginner Box or Pathfinder Core Rulebook and is your perfect gateway to thrilling adventure 500 years in the making.
So, you used to work for Edge Corp, huh? Taking it to the edge and all that. You were just a long hauler, shipping cargo from one planet to another for low pay, worse benefits, and the promise of a bonus that never showed up. Now, you're your own boss, looking for cargo you can buy for cheap and sell for bank. Jobs are everywhere. Absalom Station, sure, but the Vescarium too. Near space, even the Vast. Get used to the drift, cause you're gonna be flying long hauls. And some of the things that live in that place, they don't like visitors. I heard Edge Corp is still after you. Something about a stolen ship? And the Golden League is after you too? You got a long list of enemies, hotshot. You better start making some friends. Cause if there's one thing I've learned in a lifetime of carrying freight, It's that every bill comes due. If you really want to be free to go where you want, do as you please, you're gonna have to settle up with these people. And revenge ain't cheap. Don't say I didn't warn you.
Hello and welcome back to Paizo Live. I'm Aaron Shanks, your host, and now I have the privilege of sharing with you our Starfinder panel for this episode. Let's meet our guests. Today we have Jason Keeley, Starfinder developer. Hello, Jason. Welcome.
Hello.
Well, thanks for your patience. Do you want to tell everybody what you do as a developer?
Yeah, I mean, so many people have covered it. Patrick and Eleanor have mentioned, if you've been here for the whole time, with developers, we're directors of books. We take all the raw material given to us by our fine freelancers and make sure that it all sort of fits together nicely. I work a lot on the Starfinder Adventure Path line with Jake Tondro. So that's what we do. We are batting stories around all the time.
Excellent. Thank you for the context. And I'd also like to welcome John Compton, senior developer on the Starfinder team. Hello, John.
Hello, good to be with you.
And tell us what you're doing with the Starfinder team these days.
So, senior developer, I work with Joe Piscini to work on our hardcover rule books. So recent ones would include things like Alien Archive 4.
Excellent. So we have someone whose wheelhouse is the hardcovers and someone whose wheelhouse is the adventures. And I'm sure there's a lot of overlap that goes back and forth. So let's review where the Starfinder rulebook line stands today. I love to show off this image because it's actually at this point a more mature product line than Pathfinder 2nd Edition is. Here we have the Starfinder core rulebook, the Alien Archive, and hopefully I have these in order: Pact Worlds, Armory, Alien Archive 2, Alien Archive 3, Near Space, Starship Operations Manual, Alien Archive 4, the Character Operations Manual, and soon the Galaxy Exploration Manual, and in a few months, the Tech Revolution. Now you will note in this image, the images are flipped. They will actually come out. The Galaxy Exploration Manual, and then Tech Revolution. Hey, that's a new shiny cover, and it's nice to show it off. In fact, let's talk about the Galaxy Exploration Manual now and go right into it. Here's what we know. The worlds of infinite space are yours to discover with the Galaxy Exploration Manual. In this all-new Starfinder Rules expansion hardcover for players and game masters, it focuses on trailblazing, exploration-based play across an expansive variety of unusual planets packed with deadly dangers and thrilling possibilities for adventure. Now, you can find out a lot more about this product on our product page at Paizo.com, like a new class options, and let's talk about that, gentlemen. What does this book hold in store for new Starfinders?
I mean, when it came to creating the Galaxy Exploration Manual, one of the big driving factors at the time was, wow, Starfinder could really use some game mastering advice and material. And we talked about, like, do we want a game mastery guide sort of book? And the more that we looked into it, the more we considered several factors. One of the key ones being that when we make a Starfinder hardcover book for you, we want to provide a lot of material that's for the players and the game masters. And as we started to spin up ideas, especially since we were hot off of the really cool Deck of Many Worlds supplement that Joe Piscini designed, that we were like, you know what? Starfinder's really about getting out there and seeing all the weird, wild, and alien stuff in that big, big galaxy. And we want to highlight that. On top of that, we have all these really cool published adventures, but we know that there are plenty of people out there as well who want to create a homebrew experience or want to just do a Planet of the Week sort of experience like you might have in Star Trek. And so the Galaxy Exploration Manual is very much a book about exploring the galaxy and providing the tools that you need as a player and as a GM to make that happen. So getting into a couple of those different ideas, because there's so much in here. And we shipped in a little while ago, and so pouring through it, I get to be like, oh, that thing, that turned out that way. So first off, we have new class options, naturally. So one of the great things about Galaxy Exploration Manual is that this was one of our first big opportunities to give new options to some of the character operations manual classes, the Witch Warper, the Vanguard, the Biohacker. So we have new options for them, as well as all the other classes we've published to date. But like working on these things, it's always like, how can we not only aid in exploration, so things like the Solarian getting the ability to turn their solar weapon into grappling hooks and stuff like that, but even like the Biohacker section that Jason Keeley here wrote has a really cool theorem at high levels called ooze form. Jason, you want to chime in about that one?
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't want to turn themselves into a goopy ooze person? Right? And it lets you squeeze into cracks and of course, not take critical hit damage, right? Because you have all your organs are mushing around. And then I think like a lot of our oozes or a lot of classic oozes, if you get hit, you can choose to split yourself in half. That's why it's a nice high level ability, because then there's two of you for a short period of time.
That was a fun one to develop.
Yeah, I had fun with that one.
So if you're going to be out there exploring the galaxy, you want to make sure that you're bringing new equipment with you. So Galaxy Exploration Manual has tons of new gear, especially for that great outdoors. And when it comes to the great outdoors, we wanted to make sure that we were helping the GMs and the players understand all those amazing biomes and worlds that are out there. Some of this stuff was introduced through the Deck of Many Worlds. So you're going to find that there's a big, cool chapter about worlds with different attributes. So things like Accord, like how well do people get along? Magic, how magical is this world? How developed are their magical systems? Technology, religion, alignment. Is this a chaotic good leaning society, or is it like really lawful evil? So we have ways of looking at all these different worlds from a high attribute, medium attribute, and low attribute way, so that you can, whether you're using the deck or whether you're just creating something on the fly because you say that looks cool, you can understand what it means to have a low tech world and the sorts of stories that might involve or inspire. So one of the big things with all these "what is this world like" chapters is that they all include a pile of adventure hooks. So we have adventure hooks for, high accord worlds, like everybody gets along. Where's the conflict? In fact, there is conflict, and we provide you lots of ideas as to how to make that happen. But let's say that you're looking beyond attributes. You want to understand the biomes. We took every one of the major biomes that we've presented before, and we provided a full article to help you understand not only what is that biome generally about, but also how can I make that feel alien? So this was something where I jumped in as a sample author and wrote up a quick sample chapter, so when we were assigning these, we could have sort of a model to go off of. So I wrote up marshes, and so it's like, what does an alien marsh look like? What does a radioactive swamp feel like? Things like that. But on top of that, with the adventure hooks and also a list of creatures that you might find there. So as a GM, if you're like, oh gosh, they went to Swamp Planet, what's even there? We have a big list of stuff that you can include. But on top of that, each one of these biomes has new character options. So in the case of the marshes, it has a bunch of feats for how you can, for example, slather yourself with mud and blend in Predator style to hide from all those things that have weird blind senses. So we have all that stuff. And then we start to get into some very heavily GM-leaning sections. So toward the very end, you're going to find that there's a big, long section about building sandbox adventures. Not only campaign design, but encounter design. And you know what? We've covered magical varieties and tech varieties. What if you want to dig deeper? What if you want subgenres? You want to know what it's like to run a space western. You want to know what it's like to run a space pirates sort of campaign. We have different ways of understanding our subgenres and how you can adapt Starfinder to fit those. So again, this is very much a making it so that you can take whatever idea it is you want for a setting or a campaign, and you can find tools to help you make that happen. And finally, it ends off with a whole bunch of cool toolboxes. One of the things that we sort of nerded out about when brainstorming this book was hey, remember all those older books that would have 4-page long tables about random treasures you could find of every different value, or had settlement generation statistics and things like that? Mm-hmm. We might have included some of those too. And sort of showing off how to make all that happen. Our introduction for this book is very cute in that it sort of does an example of play using a whole bunch of these different options as the hapless GM, me, deals with a pile of complete jackals, namely a bunch of other Starfinder developers, in creating a world on the fly and a campaign on the fly just by flipping through the book. So use that as an example, and you can see just how many worlds Galaxy Exploration Manual can open up.
That's amazing. That's mind blowing. I mean, I'm a big fan. I'm a new baby Starfinder GM myself, so let me tell you, I'm having a great time being a GM, and I love the Pact World setting. But this really seems to be for someone who really wants to go beyond the Pact Worlds. I'm sure it's complementary to the Pact Worlds. It's like a jigsaw puzzle piece, but it really opens up the science fantasy genre in a way that I think a lot of people are just going to take the ball and run with it. That's really exciting.
If you like tables, you're gonna love Galaxy Exploration Manual.
And I know that we have a fan base who sometimes really loves a good table. You know, so many good tables. I've seen glimpses of it myself and preparing to promote it. And there's I got drilling over some of those tables myself. So that's going to be highly functional. And we know it's not just those tables are, you can use them to randomly generate something if you need to, but it's just an idea list. You know, you can actually just, run a finger down it and say, that's what I want. And then I want to combine it with this over here. So it's just giving you that combination of structure. It's structure for your creativity that I think is so powerful. So yay, I'm a big fan already. I know we came out with the Near Space book. I don't know if you consider this a vast book, but to me, this is kind of the everything else. It probably allows you to flesh out planets in near space, certainly, but also everywhere else. So it's really going to open things up.
For near space, the vast, or even the Pact Worlds themselves. If you want to go to a random corner of Akaton and just say, I want to go there, and point on a map.
Thank you.
And Galaxy Exploration Manual will have tools to make that happen.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's really integrated throughout all the setting. Mr. Keeley, do you have anything that you wanted to add to this book, or shall we move on to the next one?
No, I mean, I said my piece about the tables.
Okay, so looking ahead, the next hardcover is Tech Revolution. It's on the horizon. We know that you can command the galaxy's cutting-edge technologies, so sophisticated that they rival magic itself. So I'm going to cut to the chase and say that this book contains the Starfinder's newest class, the Nanocyte. Some of you play-tested that a few months ago, whose body hosts an army of robotic nanites that obey her commands. And also, it contains the all-new mech combat system, which was also a recent playtest. And then it's just going to, my understanding, kind of develop the concept of technology in the setting itself. What can you tell us about Tech Revolution and go a little deeper than what we know already?
Sure.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, so just a quick overview of a couple of things that you brought up, because not everybody might have participated in those playtests.
Yes, please.
Quick little look at the Nanocyte. The Nanocyte is a character whose powers come from a colony of nanites they have in their body, and they can release at will. So if you want to, send a swarm of things to eat your enemies, you can. If you want to cause your nanites to build tools for you and weapons, you can. Or if you just want your nanites to reinforce your body and cause you to regenerate, you can. So we playtested the Nanocyte in 2020. We got a lot of great feedback. One of the really big things to know about that feedback and some of the changes is that we did revisit some of how the nanite gear works, and we simplified and streamlined and refined some of the ways that you qualify for and acquire new knowledge of gear that you can create. So we have the Nanocyte. It's a Constitution-based class, really cool. We also have the mechs that you mentioned. And so the mechs, the idea is that you are in a giant battle robot with, and it could be solo, or it can be up to 5 other co-pilots. And the more people you put in, the more controls and systems you can manage at a time. And it's really about being in a giant battle robot. We designed the mech system so that it integrates pretty darn cleanly with the square grids that you're used to using. So if you want to use mechs to fight familiar creatures, the rules integrate cleanly. If you want to be PCs on the ground fighting a mech, Sorry. If you, as a GM, want to make your PCs fight a big mech, you can. So that's all cool. And because we are publishing a big book full of sweet art, you can bet that you're going to see not only a whole bunch of sample mechs, some, predictable ones like, we have the Vescarium mechs, we have our Hell Knight mechs, but also some weird ones like the Corpse Fleet mechs or the Xeno Warden mechs. So we really took the whole science fantasy thing to a new level with some of the mech design, and really driving a bunch of that was one of our art directors, Kent Hamilton, who did a pile of concept art. So much and so cool that we decided to add a couple more pages to this book just so that we could feature big, like 2-page spreads at a time full of mech art and little explanatory captions and things like that that are just beautiful to look at. So the variety of mechs that are coming up are sweet. But something you might not know as much about is that we also looked at some other big piles of steel that can be powerful and fun to use, namely vehicles. So our book includes new vehicles, but also 2 different things that we have not done so much before. Partly because we'd look at it and we'd say, ooh, that feels too fiddly or too difficult or something like that. But now we had this whole chapter for vehicles to make rules for improving your existing vehicles. Did you find that all-terrain transport at level 6 and you want to keep using it? You want to armor it more, you want to add more hit points, you want to add weird features like board-in clamps or integrated weapons? Now we have rules for that. Or if you would prefer, we also now have rules for creating custom vehicles that are coming up. And one of the little teasers I can give you about the class options that I'm just about to get into is that once we have customized vehicles that can go from level 1 through 20 and advance every single level, we can make classes that are about doing that. So you can expect to see an operative that has the experimental vehicle, not operative, mechanic. That has the experimental vehicle AI substitute. Super cool. Speaking of class options, though, we sure did add more class options to this. So in addition to our character operations manual classes and nanosite options and all the original 7, we have tons of alternate class features for all of these guys. So in addition, because this is about technology, we included a bunch of drone chassis as well to expand the array of 3 that you already have. But maybe you want an operative who now has the sniper alternate class feature. Or you're Solarian and you say, I don't know, I'm about like magical cosmic power. What does a tech book have for me? What it has for you is a new way of understanding your stellar attunement, namely electric attunement. So instead of photon and graviton, welcome the energy and resistance way of understanding the multiverse. Or maybe you're a witch warper, and instead of creating infinite worlds, you want to conjure infinite technology. So you're a witch warper who can sacrifice spells to create technology from other realities and use that. So all sorts of cool stuff. But like, what does this gear even look like? Like, we should have more technological gear, of course. So we have piles of new technological items. We have new weapons, new armor. Speaking of new weapons, one of the really sweet ones that we have some art of that we're not showing today is a combat electric guitar that allows you to fire sonic booms at people, where you can either just overwhelm them with a pile of different notes, or you can build up to one single power chord to explode your enemies. So that's pretty cool to look forward to. But it's also a way for us to look at new ways of understanding existing systems, like expanded rules for demolitions, or new innovative ways of looking at hacking, so that instead of just doing a single computer's check, you are overcoming a series of obstacles that allow not just one hacker to participate, but potentially the whole party at once. And on top of that, we also found this as a great opportunity to bring in a bunch of mobility aids, including a pile of hover chairs designed by Sarah Thompson, who's a fantastic advocate for disabled folks in the tabletop RPG community. So that's a lot of crunchy stuff. I also love setting things. So when it came to getting into this book, we also looked at providing a whole bunch of setting articles. So you're going to find, it must be like 20 or more different articles about the state of domestic technology, food science, medicine, media, universal polymer bases, technobabble. So if you want to have a whole bunch of technobabble you can throw around with your mechanic, we have that for you now. All of it comes together to provide this amazing look at what technology looks like in the Starfinder multiverse and what it can mean for your games.
That is truly revolutionary.
A tech revolution, in fact.
Yeah, that's really, these two hardcovers together are just breathing amazing new life and energy into the Starfinder line. And while I might have called it a mature role-playing game, I in no way mean to imply that it's stale or have plateaued. It has amazing potential that I'm still really excited for everyone to see. So thank you for sharing with us all those details. And I look forward to sharing more of that amazing art in episodes to come. Let's move on now to our Starfinder adventures, because we do have some exciting things to explore there. Let's just revisit the Fly Free or Die adventure path briefly. This month we see the 5th volume of the Fly Free or Die adventure path released on the 7th. Here is what we know already, that it's a crew of scoundrels, rogues, and misfits that find it hard to survive in the galaxy where everyone has a price. It's definitely not about necessarily being heroes of the story, but just struggling to survive, facing some get-rich-quick schemes, so the ups and downs of fate. And so we're on volume 5 now. The image we're looking at now shows all 6 glorious covers that we can look forward to finishing at the end of April. Let's check in with Jason Keeley and see what you can share with us about how this arc is continuing.
Yeah, well, book 5 is by Christopher Wasco, and it's called Crash and Burn. And I don't know, can we get a little more spoilery on this?
A little bit.
Basically, after the last volume, which was a heist in a Callistocrat sort of like space station, right? The beginning of this adventure sees the PCs sort of like having an opportunity to kind of like luxuriate in their wealth and getting that sort of big heist. So there's some like fun little downtime activities that you can throw in about people like just sort of going out and gambling or buying a cool space vacation, right? So it's a bit about that, but then the adventure sort of, it all gets turned on its head when all the enemies that the PCs have made up until this point kind of like come back to haunt them, and they find themselves in very dire straits on Absalom Station with all of their money and their fancy spaceships stolen and basically blacklisted from having all the jobs that they've been doing since the beginning, and just finding themselves just down and out. And it's about sort of building back up and getting a little bit of revenge on the people who did this to you.
Excellent. Maybe that's spoilery to some people, but that sounds absolutely in line with every GM who's ever run an adventure for me.
Sure.
So if you're not expecting a plot twist like that, maybe you should.
You should be. This volume has some like fun sort of like setting stuff about sort of general big corporations that exist in our setting, and then on the flip side of that, information about labor organizations, and then like some fun character options like the safety inspector archetype, or the labor the union organizers archetype, and some like feats that you can take that when all of your party has them, they work better together. So it's about like unions as like helping out your fellow spacefarer.
Nice.
Yeah.
I just want to be able to point out to our viewers that each and every adventure path volume has a ton of content in it that continues to develop the Starfinder world, the setting, and the rule set beyond that specific adventure path. So I recommend that everybody just, even if a particular adventure path, maybe you're just really involved in the adventure path of the moment. Typically, that's people are just deep into the adventure that they have, but and really want to move on to the next one. I'm just saying, pay attention, because there's new content coming out with these volumes, and you don't want to miss it. You don't want to get a hold of it and enhance the game. Enhance the game you're in.
Use it whatever you're playing. What home games or other APs, you can always use the stuff.
In the back of every one of these volumes, there's an alien archive in which those aliens are not necessarily found in that adventure. They're just new, and they're there for GMs to use and throw in whenever. So I want to call that out. And I want to move on to the next adventure path that is on the horizon, called Horizons of the Vast. And that is the next adventure path. We know that as part of a massive effort to explore and develop an uninhabited planet full of valuable resources, the heroes are placed in control of a settlement and must deal with challenges from both within and without. This is, here it is, the final cover of Volume 1. So that will establish the look of the adventure path going forward. I believe that viewers should be able to find that on our Paizo store shortly. Katina is working on getting those gorgeous images updated, and I think it just has a great look. The first volume there is called Planetfall. Can you tell us about that at all, Jason?
Sure, yeah. It's the first volume of our big Horizons of the Vast. AP is, we've been sort of talking about it and calling it around the offices. It's Kingmaker in space. Yeah. It is our sort of you're set off. You're given free reign over this sort of section of land of this newly discovered planet, and you'll be hex crawling your way around, setting up a settlement, deciding how you want to expand it, what kind of resources you're going to be putting down. How can you basically survive this with the thrive with bringing in, figuring out what you want to do. Basically, you're gonna be able to, because you're responsible for all the people who live there too. There's a bunch of people who come with you who are like basically looking towards you as the PCs, as the essentially the administrators of this new settlement and new area. And so as you are doing that, of course, that would be we'd be remiss if we didn't have fun secrets and mysteries abounding in this planet. When you get to find out, maybe this planet is not as uninhabited as you might think, or something about the creatures that you find there are a little strange and weird, and there's some kind of mystery behind it all. I don't that I'm going to not spoil, because it's a developing thing as to what exactly is going on in this new whole system, basically, that has been discovered by the Pack Worlds and the Veskarium, and it's sort of a joint scientific venture. But there'll also be other, essentially other these nations forming nation states on this world as well, going, and whether or not you're going to be dealing nice with them or sort of butting heads with them, it's going to be up to you. They have their own sort of areas. There's not a whole lot of necessarily land grabs. You need to fight people for land, but you might need to basically deal with other people's problems. They come in and be like, oh, we're having all this difficulty. We need you to, if you could, lend us some of your resources, or we found this and we want to, or you found this and we want to buy it off you, and that sort of thing. So, and you get, competing bids and whatnot. So there's a lot of lots of little stories that you get to tell, at least in this first volume, that you will lead up to a crisis that you'll need to take care of. And as the adventure path continues, as we go on, there's going to be more and more of that happening, with lots of other, some more land to explore. Eventually, you're going to head off this planet and maybe go to the moon or some of the other planets in this system. It's all very exciting.
It is. Yeah. It is. That's going to be unlike anything I think Starfinder's ever done before.
It is. Yeah. We have a whole subsystem in there for this, what we're calling charter development, because you get a sort of land charter and you get to spread out as you see fit.
I like how it will most likely fit in with the Galaxy Exploration Manual and some of those biomes and terrains.
It'll be very helpful.
It'd be really helpful. Nice, nice energy there, gentlemen. And I liked the hex background in the cover itself. That hexagonal pattern. Little hint as to what's to come. So this will come out every other month.
That's
because we have the exciting Starfinder standalone adventures that are coming our way. The first standalone adventure for the Starfinder RPG is almost here. Junker's Delight is a complete Starfinder adventure for first level characters, written by Jason Keeley and Misha Buschiger. And it features strange new alien creatures, new spells and equipment, and an in-depth look at, Kafek Depot?
Kefak Depot.
Thank you, sir. And a rough and tumble Akatonian settlement home, close to countless adventures. Paizo Live is also a vocabulary lesson. We're starting to learn. So here is the cover. I believe it is the final cover of Junker's Delight. Incredibly evocative and lots of energy in that one. So this is the first standalone Starfinder RPG. Jason, take it away.
Yeah, this is for first level adventurers, first level PCs, sort of, and it's written as the person who wrote it. It's written to be usable by first time GMs and for first time players. We give you everything you need to run Starfinder. We don't give you everything you need to run Starfinder in the book, obviously. You need the core rulebook, but you don't need anything else. You don't even need an alien archive. You just need the core rulebook and this adventure, and you can get to playing right away. Make some characters. It gives you lots of advice, sort of like, hey, at this point, your players are going to level up to second level. Here's maybe some things to talk about with your players. Maybe set aside a little bit of time before the next session or after the session to really talk about it. They're going to be wanting to spend their. Here's the credits, and point out this is how they're going to do this. You're going to pick a feat at this point, whatever, third level. So it gives you some advice on like, this is the part where you might need to refresh your memory on the certain set of rules. But in addition to all that, it has this fun story that takes place on Akaton, which is our sort of Mars equivalent, right? And what has happened in what happened in Akaton a while back was they used to mine starship fuel, but thanks to the drift engines happening, that sort of has gone bust. So Akaton is kind of like a lot of wastelands in a lot of way. I know that some people were sort of asking like, when are we going to see a sort of like a post-apocalyptic Starfinder thing? This is kind of a little bit like that. This is a little bit like you're looking at town that is sort of dirty and dusty. The thing that's hilarious about the name Kefak Depot, it's basically an equivalent of saying Roach Town, because Kefaks are just sort of these vermin that eat everything. And so this town is built up and under this sort of junk tourism trade where there's a lot of crashed spaceships and other sorts of garbage everywhere. And people will go there and sort of like, and get tours of these giant junkyards. So the PCs are there for various reasons, which we go into in the adventure, and then you're sort of asked to help some people out and find your way through this junk and maybe rescue some people and discover some fun new secrets hidden out there in all the trash.
That's going to be great.
Yeah.
That's going to be, sounds like it's someone who has started with the Pathfinder beginner box and really wants to take the next step forward into the full Starfinder core rulebook experience. Grab the core rulebook, grab this adventure, and it's gonna be a nice hand-holding experience to help them integrate into the Starfinder role-playing game in a bigger way. That's really exciting for our first adventure out of the gate. Let me circle back for a moment and just talk about timelines, just for our audience. We've got a Galaxy Exploration Manual targeted for a June release. Tech Revolution August. Planetfall, Horizons of the Vast, that's also June. We will have a digital one-shot, just like Pathfinder Sundered Waves, release in May at PaizoCon, with details to be announced at the end of April, so stay tuned for that. Not revealing the name of it yet or any of the details, but we will confirm its existence and that it's underway. So that's sort of the big highlights of almost all of the big highlights of the Starfinder calendar year, which I think now it's a great time to talk about your Paizo Live spoilers for Starfinder. Jason, why don't you go first?
Sure. Since we were talking about Junker's Delight just now, I want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's in the back. There's actually new class stuff in the back. There's an archetype called the Junkomancer, and there's some fun like junk-based spells, because this is all about junk. We've got sort of basically some reprints that you've seen and maybe some of the other ones, but we've got some new ones too. My favorite is the sort of a higher level spell called the Junk Shanty, which is essentially, you get to make a little extra dimensional space where you can sleep safely, but from the outside, it just looks like a pile of junk.
Excellent. It's built-in camouflage for.
It's
for
built-in
that
camouflage, exactly. And there's some fun new weapons in this too that are all based out of junk, like a bazooka that shoots garbage, and a melee weapon built out of a garbage disposal. It's all kinds of fun stuff.
There's going to be a lot of junky first level characters coming to Starfinder soon.
I hope so.
In a really
Bring 'em
good
the junk.
way. Junkie is going to be have a positive connotation. I think people are going to have a lot of fun with it. All right, thank you. Oh, and Jason, where are you on Twitter?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter at Herzwesten, HERZWESTEN.
Thank you kindly. All right, John. I believe you have a big Paizo spoiler that we've been looking forward to announcing. Can you share it with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So a while ago, you probably saw that we had some playtest of another class, the Precog. And this is basically a spellcasting character who is able to predict and even warp the future, past and present. And people have always speculated, well, this has to be coming out in some sort of book, right? Well, today I'd love to share what our book, After Tech Revolution, is going to be. It's called Galactic Magic. It is a book exploring all of the magic side of our multiverse, including not only more than 100 new spells, the Precog class, new class options for everything, rituals, magical gear, magical organizations and schools, but also a whole bunch of faith-based options and a deeper exploration into the various gods of our setting, as well as the introduction of a few others that you may never have heard about, filling in some of those blanks, as well as our mystical philosophies and other organizations. So that is going to be Galactic Magic toward the end of this year.
Indeed, that's so exciting. It's just, all of this year is revolutionary for Starfinder. I'm just really excited about the new hardcovers coming, and yeah, we think that's going to be well, mid-November. All the street dates tend to move up after what is traditionally PaizoCon, the first weekend of August. And so our street dates move up about a week each month in preparation for our December street date, which is actually very early in December. So you can expect Galactic Magic in about mid-November. It can be your Thanksgiving reading if you celebrate. Maybe Thanksgiving in both Canada and America. I'm not quite sure if the timeline is going to work, but that's the way I envision spending my time this autumn. So thank you, gentlemen, very much for your patience and saving a big announcement for the end of the show. I appreciate that. We'll have a lot more art on all of these products to come in future episodes of Paizo Live, and of course more at PaizoCon itself at the end of May. Thanks again to all of our guests tonight. I very much appreciate the ability to connect all of our homes together during these pandemic times and letting us into your homes. Catch the next episode of Paizo Live on Friday, April 23rd at 4 p.m. Pacific. Until then, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, here on Twitch, and of course, always at paizo.com. Until then, adventures ahead.